Hello, it's Karen Burniston here with an assembly video for one of our die sets. This is die number 1306, the Whirly wheel, and I will also cover a new clear stamp set that we have called the Whirly Wheel Words. You can check out all of our products at KarenBurniston.com. There is a fun motion to the Whirly wheel. You just spin the wheel, it's going to lift that item up, kind of leap it across the card, and then bring it back down again. So it's one of those ones that's fun to spin and spin and spin. There are 8 pieces in the die set, including a slot die. Now that slot die is small, so my suggestion is use some temporary tape and just tape it to a thin piece of paper and label it. And you can actually use it as a die cut even with that paper attached. All right, let's talk about 3 pieces in the die set. So that is the wheel and the washer and the arm. Now for cardstock weight, I like to use a little bit heavier weight for those parts, those mechanical parts. So I've got 100-pound white cardstock. Okay, so these tabs are going to spin inside that washer, and these tabs are going to spin inside that hole. And one thing that can be good for the Whirly wheel to make sure that that spinning is nice and smooth, and also just kind of helps the durability of the die set, is to add a little bit of clear packing tape to your cardstock before die cutting, just in the area where you're going to have tabs, and for the washer as well. And then what you'll have is you'll have those tabs will have tape on them. That'll make them a little slicker so that they'll spin a little easier. And then I also think it helps the durability, because one thing about the Whirly wheel is you're going to send this to somebody and they're just going to keep spinning and spinning and spinning. It's fun. It's a fun die set. And so you don't want the friction of the paper against paper, to eventually kind of wear out the paper. So try a little tape. Doesn't have to be clear packaging tape. It could be just kind of your normal Scotch tape, whatever you've got around. But my suggestion is to add that tape to your cardstock for the washer and then for anything that has tabs. So that's the center of the Whirly wheel and the end of the arm. Now you can use any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer thin die, and today I'm using my Spellbinders Platinum 6. Okay, let me show a little bit closer to the camera here. So now tape on the tabs for the center of the Whirly wheel, tape on the washer itself, and then tape on the end of the arm. I like to think of it as the thermometer end of the arm. Those tabs have tape on them. Okay, the next die I'm going to use out of the set is going to be the sleeve die. So this die here will cut a sleeve that will constrain the arm. Okay, so it doesn't really matter what you cut that out of. It could be pattern paper, it could be cardstock. It doesn't have to, you're never going to see it. It's going to be behind your cover plate, but it's just part of the mechanism. But the one thing that I want to say about the sleeve is that when you construct it, which means you're just going to fold on the 2 fold lines and you've got a tapered tab to go around the other side, bring the tab to the outside of the sleeve. So in other words, don't glue the tab to the inside of the sleeve, glue it to the outside of the sleeve. And that way on the interior part where the arm is, there's absolutely nothing that can catch inside there. The next die in the set that I'll show is the scoop die. So this die is what's going to cut a scoop out of your card so that you can access the wheel. Now what size card, that is completely up to you. It is designed to where it'll work great in an A2 size card. That's what I have here. You can also do a slimline card, and you can of course go bigger. Now for location, my favorite location for the scoop and the wheel is 1.5 inches off the bottom edge of the card. So no matter what size card I'm doing, I measure 1.5 inches off the bottom and make a little pencil line on the edge of the card. And there is a hole in the scoop die that you can use to align it. So you can take the vertical part of the hole, the little T-shaped hole that's in that die, and have it along the edge of the card. And then the little spoke, the horizontal spoke, would be where the pencil line is, okay? So just use kind of that T to help you line it up. And you can see that I'm actually a little bit lower than my pencil line, but the idea is to have the pencil line right in that little horizontal spot. Okay, I roll it through and now I've got that scoop cut out of my card. Okay, so the tabs that are on the wheel, those are going to push to the back. So I'm going to push those tabs underneath the piece. And then you may need to curve them as well, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get those tabs through the hole that is in the washer. So here's my washer. I'm going to put that shiny side down, the tape side down, get those 2 tabs through that washer. Okay, yeah, there we go. And then once they're through, then I can flatten them out really well so that they won't come back out again. Okay, so now I've got a washer. You can see it spinning on there. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing with the tabs that are out on the end of the arm. So I'm going to just bend those a little bit, you know, kind of curve them, and then push them down, and then get them through the hole on the whirly wheel, and then unfold them on the back, okay? So that is it. That is, I've now attached the arm to the wheel and the wheel to the washer, okay? Then it is the washer that is going to glue down on the card. It's only the washer that glues down. And I want to do is I want to arrange it so that I've got the edge of the wheel in my scoop area. So when I put the glue on the washer, it is very important that I do it only around the perimeter, okay? Because the inside tabs have to have room to spin. So don't get that glue too much. Don't get it to squish out into the interior. Just get a little line of glue around the perimeter. Keep as far away from those tabs as you can. Okay, and then you're going to just set that down so that the edge of the wheel is in the scoop area on the side of your card, and it's just the washer that's being glued down right now. So the washer is the only thing that is glued down. Okay, and now it will start working. So all that has to happen is that the arm has to be constrained in some way so that it can, you know, kind of go up and over the card. If you don't constrain it, then it's just going to move when the wheel does. But that's what the sleeve is for. So you put the sleeve around the arm, and then you can experiment with where that sleeve is going to go. And you might notice the motion of the arm is going to change depending on where you put the sleeve. So with the arm all the way down, as low as it can go, I find that just a little bit above the wheel is probably as close to the wheel as you can get it. Okay, but it can go in different spots, and you can just explore those different spots, because watch the end of the arm as it comes up and over. It's going to change the motion of it. Okay, maybe you're going to put that sleeve at a little bit of an angle, and then you're going to see a difference with that. If you move that sleeve out further towards the end, you're going to get less motion, and there might be some times when you want less motion. So you really can just experiment with where that sleeve is going to go to constrain that arm. Can it go on the side? Sure. So, you know, you can find a spot where it doesn't work, you know, where it's too far, and then see it's, you know, it doesn't have enough room to get around the wheel. So it's got to go all the way around the wheel. So the sleeve has to be somewhere where you can allow that arm to go all the way around the wheel, but you can really experiment with where it goes. Okay, so now I'm going to glue my sleeve down. So I've taken it off the arm, added some glue, and then I'm going to put it back into place, kind of picking the spot that I thought I liked the best, give it a test, make sure that I like the motion. Okay, now I have to cover this thing up so that people don't see what's going on there. So I've got a little cover piece of paper here. I cut that down just a little bit smaller than the card itself. And now I have to decide, what do I want to happen? Do I want the item to just come up from behind the paper up at the top? Do I want to drop the paper down a little bit, or maybe use an edge die on it and have it just be a little bit of a drop and then something is going to come up and over? Or do I want to use the slot die to have it come through the paper and onto the front of the card? And for this one, I'm going to use that slot die. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is just line up the scoop die with the scoop that's below it. And then I get my slot die out, and where I want that slot to go is basically just right above the sleeve. So I'm going to turn my slot die over so that it is blade side up, and I'm going to look down through that slot die. I can see that I'm just above the sleeve, and then I'm going to put some temporary tape underneath my paper so that it's sticky on top. So now I just got to get it to sit there. Okay, then I can carefully set my cover plate over the top, get it into place, and then push it, and then it's going to transfer that slot die so that it can cut the slot in the right spot. Now, I don't care about my cutting pads, you know, that I cut sometimes into the bottom one and sometimes into the top one. If you do, then you'll have to do this in 2 steps, because right now I'm going to cut the slot up into that upper cutting pad because it's, you know, underneath the piece. But if you don't care, then you can do both steps at once. So the slot die cutting from the top, the scoop die cutting from the top, and the slot die cutting from underneath. Okay, and now I've got that slot in the perfect position. Slide my arm through that slot. Okay, and then hold that in position, and I can operate the card. Now the slot can be used without the sleeve at all. You don't have to use the sleeve if you've got the slot. You just need something to constrain the arm. So in attaching the cover plate to the card, you've got to avoid the wheel and everywhere that it spins. So your best bet is going to be adhesive just in the corners. And I like to use a pop dot. You don't have to use a pop dot, but if you do, it just kind of makes everything a little bit looser, easier to spin, less friction, paper on paper. So if you've got, pop dots or foam tape that you could use in the corners, then you could elevate that cover plate just a little bit and give your whirly wheel a little bit more room. Okay, and just giving it a test, it is working great. Okay, now whatever I put on the end of that arm is just going to do that little dance, come up and over and come back down again. Okay, let's talk about the final two dies in the set, and they are the frame and rectangle die. Now the inner one is just a rectangle, it cuts a rectangle. You might see that the outer edge of it is decorative, but that is so when you put those two dies together and either run them through with a thick cardstock or an embossing sandwich, then you'll get a little bit of an interesting embossed shape to your frame. But on its own, that small one is just going to cut a rectangle. And if you use the outer die on its own, then it just cuts a decorative edge rectangle. So then now if you layer the two together, you get that cool frame. Okay, now I don't have to use all of the arm. I can trim off the excess, but I have to make sure that I have it in its lowest position so that I keep enough of the arm that it has come through the slot. So in other words, I can't spin the wheel and have it actually duck down through the slot and out of sight. So I need enough to come through in its lowest position. But then once I've discovered where that lowest position is, then I can take a pair of scissors and just trim off the excess. Then I just need some adhesive with that arm in its lowest position, and then I'm going to attach the frame to it. So the frame is only going to attach to the arm. Now I designed the height of that frame very specifically so that it is the right height to completely cover the motion of the arm. So if you do this kind of technique, you never see the slot or the arm at all. It's always hidden behind the frame. And it just looks like the frame is just kind of magically floating along around the card. So that's real generic, that technique. And you can also use it to reveal like a greeting or a photograph or something that's behind the frame that is only revealed as you spin the wheel. Maybe you want to try something like this, putting a graduation cap on the arm and then having it spin up and off of someone's head and then come back down again. Okay, let's talk about that companion clear stamp set. It's sold separately. It's called the Whirly Wheel Words. You have the option to use the built-in stencil feature of the wheel to stencil in the arrows around the wheel. So that could be done with a pen, or you could use, some ink. So you could take your ink and a sponge and you could just pounce the ink down through that stencil feature and onto the wheel. And that will give you those arrows. Now, if you want to do that a little bit faster, you can get the Whirly Wheel Words because it actually has a clear stamp that will do all of those arrows at one time. Okay, it is a clear stamp, so it's bendable. So what you want to do is you want to just put that face down and let it find its natural position because that is that perfect circle. It can be just a little bit off, but you don't want to stretch it, So then you can pick up the die with a clear block if you've got one, or you could use your stamp positioner. Okay, and then I just need to ink up that stamp and stamp it onto whatever color I want my wheel to be. So you do want to do the stamping first. And then remember that best practices of adding a little clear tape to the center of the cardstock before die cutting the wheel. And now I just have to line up those stamped arrows in the arrow-shaped openings that are part of the wheel die. So it's very easy to do. I just have to put the die down over where I can see all of those stamped arrows through the die. Then I roll it through my die cutting machine, and now I have the arrows all on the edge of the whirly wheel. Personally, I think the arrows are enough for anybody to figure out what to do, but if you wanted to really make sure they knew, you could stamp that tiny word turn next to the arrow that is at the side when the hole for the arm is at the bottom. Okay, that's the best spot for your word turn because that's going to be the closed position of that card. So that's going to be the first thing they see. The first arrow they see is going to be the one that's at the far right in the center when the hole is at the bottom. There are a bunch of words on that stamp set, some of which go vertically. So there's a hello, there's a congrats, and an HB2U, so happy birthday to you. And with those ones, you can actually just use the arm to cut out the word because you can see down through the arm to see where it is. So you kind of have to figure out how far up the arm you want, you know, like how much you're going to see. You could also stamp it afterwards, but do remember that best practice of adding a little bit of tape under the thermometer end of the arm when you die cut it. Then I just attach the arm in the usual manner. And now I've got the word hello stamped on the arm. So that'll be revealed as it comes up and out. A couple great companion dies in this same release that work wonderful with the Whirly Wheel are the curved edges and the leaping animals. I'm going to use both those dies for a bunny themed birthday card. So here I have several cuts of those curved edges. And now I'm kind of reassembling them, just going down a piece of paper and using adhesive only along the bottom edge of each grass strip so that I'll be able to tuck bunnies in behind the blades of grass. Okay, so here's my grassy scene, and I don't have adhesive behind the blades of grass so that I can tuck items in. So that leaping bunny will be perfect in there, but also the bunnies from the Easter borders, and then I'm making it a birthday card, so I'm going to use some of our birthday charms. Okay, I don't have things glued down yet, but basically this is how it's going to look. Okay, for attaching the washer behind the wheel, I want the adhesive just around the perimeter of that washer. And then I'm going to get that attached to the front of my card so that the edge of the wheel is in my scoop area. So I'm doing an A2 size card again. So for this one, I'm not going to have the arm come through the card. I'm just going to have it come up from behind the grass. So all I need is a sleeve. And what I've done is place that bunny so that when the arm is the lowest, the ears stay in. I can place my cover plate over the card to figure out where the scoop needs to be cut. But since I have so much dimension on that front of that card, I want the cutting pad to just cover the scoop die so that I don't squish down everything else running it through my machine. Okay, I decided on 2 layers of pop dots because I don't want the bunny to come over and get caught in the grass. So I'm using 2 layers of pop dots in the corners, but I'm actually not putting any in the upper right corner. And that is just because of the location of my bunny. His back legs actually end up going right through that area where that pop dot would be, so that if I put a pop dot there, it's going to impede the motion. Now, I could have moved the bunny over, like in other words, just made the sleeve a little bit further to the left, and then I would have been able to put a pop dot there. But it is working fine, so I'm not going to mess with it. I am just going to leave it. It's got the pop dots in the other 3 corners. Maybe I'm going to kind of pull my grass out a little bit so that it can't really become a catch point for my bunny. And now I have this cool Whirly Wheel bunny card. Inside the card, I'm just creating kind of a similar scene. And then for a greeting, I'm using Let's Celebrate from our new Birthday Magic clear stamps. Once again, I need the scoop in it, so I'll make sure that I get that cut before I glue that inside the card. And here is my finished bunny birthday card. So that is an A2 size card. I can use an A2 size envelope. It is fun to just spin the wheel. So you can imagine all of the different ways that you can use the Whirly Wheel all year round for all sorts of fun designs. I am in the process of moving from Texas to Minnesota, and I am going through everything I own and purging it. And I came across this newsletter from the summer of 2001. Now, this is a newsletter for one of my favorite rubber stamp companies back then, Rubber Baby Buggy Bumpers. I just loved that stamp company. And back here, look at this wonderful wheel card for Halloween. So Rubber Baby customer Karen Burniston of Littleton, Colorado, that's when I lived in Colorado, I made them a card and sent it to them and basically made this type of Whirly Wheel by hand. And I gave them some directions for how to do it, and they published it in their newsletter. And now here it is, 24 years later. Unfortunately, no more Rubber Baby Buggy Bumpers, but we do have a die now to make the Whirly Wheel. I love to end assembly videos with some inspiration from our very talented design team. I mentioned earlier that the Whirly Wheel is slimline friendly, and I love this card by Lois, especially that you cannot even see the unicorn until you spin the wheel. Another card by Lois, this time an A2 size, featuring the Whirly wheel with the leaping animals, this time the porpoise, and it says, "Fishing you a happy birthday." Another fishing card, this time by Sue Small Crider, "Here, fishy fishy," and she's using our new fishing lure charms with the Whirly wheel. And then Sue kept the fishing theme going with a slimline fishing card. Now this time she got very clever and stacked 2 wheels. So technique here, which she has promised to do a video on, where you can see both wheels are being spun at the same time. And then let me open the whole can of worms. I just had to say that. I just love the inside of this card as well. Nikki Foden has been doing something very clever with her Whirly wheel cards, where she adds additional spokes to the original arm so that she can have more items flying. I also like her use of a clear material. Here's a card by Lois, "Celebrate, You Did It," graduation card featuring that frame with the hidden reveal of a greeting. And she's using the final leaping animal, the frog. Another card by Lois, "You're Sweet," with a bee flying out on a clear arm. I love this super glitter sparkly happy birthday card by Sue Small Crider featuring the unicorn on the Whirly wheel. On this card, Suzanne Smith spins the wheel and then an owl pops up from behind the popcorn. And then a couple cards by Jen Webster. She is amazing with color. On this one, she has a porpoise flying on the Whirly wheel, and on this one, the witch takes a ride. And then Sandy Diller with a wonderful graduation card, this time making the hat fly. The Whirly Wheel die set, along with the Whirly Wheel Words clear stamp set, that's kind of fun to say, are available now at KarenBurniston.com, as well as at a lot of your favorite local and online retailers. Thanks for watching. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can purchase these dies as well as find links to our other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.